Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters and friends watching. My name is Salman and it's my pleasure to introduce and host this panel discussion this evening on the London mayoral elections coming this week. This discussion is organised by Sabeel and Islam21c, and you at home can get involved in this discussion right from the beginning by going to Islam21c's Twitter page or just hashtagging #Muslim vote. It's my pleasure to introduce our panel of esteemed guests here tonight. To my right I have Shaykh Dr. Haitham Haddad from the Islamic Council of Europe. We have Azad Ali from MEND, and he is the head of Community Development at MEND, which stands for Muslim Engagement and Development. And finally, we have, last but not least, Takriti, who is the CEO and founder of the Cordoba Foundation. I welcome you all this evening. We'll start off just by myself putting a few simple questions to each panelist, and then jumping right into your conversation, your discussions from home using the Twitter handle at Islam21c and that hashtag again, #MuslimVote. You can also get involved in the discussion by writing a comment under the YouTube video or indeed on the post at Islam21c.com. So we'll start with Shaykh Haitham. You've spoken for many years about the importance of political participation and so forth, and no doubt the majority of people watching at home today will have some familiarity with your view with regards to political participation and voting and so forth. But may I just put this brief question to you, just to stimulate the discussion, inshallah. What should Muslims be thinking internally when they approach these discussions, in terms of their relationship with Allah, in terms of their personal obligations towards Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and facing the challenges that they do?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Well, this is a good question. To be honest with you, we should look at ourselves that we are a great ummah, that Allah Jalla wa ala empowered us, and Allah Jalla wa ala entrusted us with a heavy trust, with a heavy responsibility. All of us know the ayah that is always frequently quoted when Allah Jalla wa ala says, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. I think this ayah summarizes a lot. You are the best nation ever raised to mankind. Not just because of your color, because of your ethnicity, because of your background. No. The reason was mentioned after that. You enjoin the good, forbid the evil, and believe in Allah Jalla wa ala. So we should look at ourselves as individuals or as a community as part of this great ummah, and we have a great responsibility towards that ummah. We have a vision to look for, and that is to enjoin the good, forbid the evil, and believe in Allah Jalla wa ala. Now, Muslims should be smart enough to take any possible opportunity, any legal opportunity to further that cause, which is enjoining the good, forbidding the evil, and believe in Allah Jalla wa ala. Now, in certain circumstances, maybe, we are not afraid to say that in certain circumstances, jihad is the way. But in many other circumstances, there are different ways of furthering the Islamic causes. Those ways, as I said, Islam is a very flexible religion. So each context has its own ways of furthering the Islamic cause. This is one thing. The other thing is, we need to remember that once we talk about the Islamic cause, any Islamic cause helps others. It is not because of us. No. It is enjoining the good in order to let other people benefit from it. Forbidding the evil, because the evil is affecting all of us. And as I always say, once I challenged, in fact, a journalist, I said, tell me about one thing that Islam calls for and it is harmful for people. Islam wants people to worship one God. this helps them to understand the purpose of their existence. Islam calls people not to drink alcohol. Islam calls people not to fornicate. Islam calls people to keep the marriage intact. Islam calls people to be honest. Islam calls people to call for justice. Of course, we can mention the ayat and the hadith that talk about this. But my main point is we as Muslims should be engaged in changing the society, the environment that we live in, the context we live in, to the betterment for all of us. So that should be the starting point when we talk about political participation or the coming mayoral election, that we should look for something that will benefit us, will benefit all of us.
Azad, just to get us all on the same page and introduce in terms of what we're actually talking about, can you just remind us what is actually happening in this election on Thursday? What are people going to actually vote for?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum alhamdulillah rabbil alameen assalatu wassalamu ala rasulil kareem amma ba'd. Just as an intro also, as you mentioned, MEND, Muslim Engagement and Development, just want to kind of clarify, as an organization, we're not a dawah organization, we're not necessarily an Islamic or a Muslim organization in that sense. Our sole purpose is to primarily, with the Muslim community, empower them to become active citizens. The way we see it, vast majority of the Muslims in this country see this as their country. This is where they were born, and this is where they're going to remain. And what we want them to do is play a positive, proactive role in every aspect of society. And what we've analyzed is that in media and politics, Muslims are perhaps the least active. And if they are active, they're not active in a way that is bring about positive results, if you like. We're not proportionately represented, but we're not proportionately engaged either. So I think, if we can say one, but we have to also follow it with some effort. Yeah. In terms of the elections on Thursday, 5th of May, you have 6 major elections actually taking place across the country. So you have the Scottish Parliament election, you have the Welsh Assembly election, then you have the local council elections, most places out of London. Then you'll have, which is 2 elections in London, the mayor election and the London Assembly elections. And then you have a very important election, which a lot of people don't know about, which is the Police and Crime Commissioner elections. So as an organization, and I'm going to shamelessly plug our website, if those people that are online and others that watch it later, if you go to getoutandvote.info, the website, all of these elections are covered and all the details are there. So in terms of, what are we talking about? I know we're going to be talking about London, but I'd also like to, in the discussions, because I'm sure people are tuning in or watching online from across the country, I do want to talk about the Police Crime Commissioner elections as well, as they are important.
Excellent. So the London mayor election is not just the only thing happening.
No.
It's not just
6.
London as well.
Yeah.
There's the general
London Assembly, yeah.
Police and Crime Commissioner.
Welsh Assembly, local council, Scottish Parliament. Yeah.
So we'll dip into that later on during the course of the discussion, inshallah. But if we bring it back to London, okay, just for the time being, Anas, why are we having this discussion? Why is it important?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Thank you very much, Salman and Shaykh Haitham and Brother Azad. It's always a pleasure sharing platforms with you. I would like to second what Shaykh Haitham started off with, and that is we have, as a community, we have moved on in terms of our understanding and the kind of debate that we're having. I recall, and I'm pretty sure that we all here recall the days when we used to approach any kind of political participation with a lot of hesitancy, a lot of trepidation. There was a lot of, fatwas hanging over our heads, and whether it was halal or haram. And I'm pleased that Shaykh Haitham, amongst many others of ilm and knowledge, have actually dispelled the problems that surround this. And now we as Muslims can claim our rightful place within this society. And the rightful place, and I think that much has been said about the obligations of how we devote ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And amongst that act of devotion to Allah is the engagement and indulgence in the action of reform, of islah. إن أريد إلا الإصلاح ما استطعت وما توفيقي إلا بالله. And therefore, from that point of view, from that perspective, on Thursday we will have all those elections across the country. But to speak about London specifically, just to highlight why it is important that we have this discussion, we are talking about arguably the most important capital in the world. A capital of immense political importance, immense economic importance, immense. It signifies, the West in a way. The attitudes, the cultures, the lifestyles, the trends towards, the big issues that we as Muslims and we as human beings are concerned with. So London is extremely important from that point of view. London is one of the most populated capitals in the world. During the day, we have reportedly around 11 to 12 million people. The people who live within London and who will vote are estimated just around 8 million. Amongst them are almost 1 million Muslims. And the mayoral elections particularly, and the London General Assembly elections, are going to bring in the new administration for the next term, who will be in charge of, the major issues to do with people's daily lives, with housing, transportation, crime prevention, policing, and so many other things that make this election incredibly important for us as Muslims, yes, but also as Londoners, as citizens of this country, and for the betterment, hopefully of London. So that is why we're having this discussion.
Excellent. Azad, if I may ask you something on the back of what you just said. Over the last few days and indeed weeks, I've been, following discussions that my colleagues, my friends, brothers and sisters have been having about the London election. I've been getting quite a few mixed messages in terms of how important it is. I mean, honestly, you described how important London is as a capital. I've got no hesitation praising London, being born and raised in London and so on. But how much power does the mayor actually wield?
Well, to put it in context, what Brother Anas just mentioned, after the Prime Minister, the most powerful man in the country is the London Mayor. So that should give you some context. It means in terms of economy, in terms of actually making change, in terms of, like Anas mentioned, housing. We have one of the biggest housing crises at the moment going on in London. Okay, now it is affecting a lot of communities, but it's having an acute effect on the Muslim community because by and large, most Muslim families are 3 to 5 kids. Yeah, so there's about 5 to 7 adults, and it's problematic because most of the new build that is taking place is 1 or 2 bedroom, which is not sufficient. So this is something a mayor will have a say in. That the boroughs in London, the housings they built, that he can or she can dictate almost what kind of housing takes place, and that's important. And if you look at employment as well, because it's a very important area, London is also a leading service provider across the world. The City of London provides, and locally here, Canary Wharf, it provides some of the best services across the world. Now, to keep that momentum, to keep that investment coming in, and also the expertise going out, you need a mayor who understands all of this stuff, and the mayor will have a say in all of this. So all of these things are important, but I just want to kind of touch upon, something that's really important. Some people, they don't understand the importance of something until it affects them personally. Yeah. And I think, as an organization, we also deal with Islamophobia, for example. And we talk about Islamophobia in many places across the country. And I can see sometimes in the audience, and sometimes people do ask, is it really that bad, Islamophobia? It's not really that bad. I've never been attacked or anything else. But, then when you speak to actually a person, and usually it's sisters that are being verbally abused or worse. Physically. Physically. When you speak to them, then you see the trauma that it causes. Yeah. And then you have that realization. Politics, unfortunately, is like that. So this is one of the things that we're trying to do, is we're reaching out to the Muslim community. We hold training courses on politics so that people understand actually the power. And I'll just give you one legislation which the Muslim community was very late to engage with, which was the same-sex marriage. Now, this is something everyone in the Muslim community wanted to have a say on, but didn't know how to engage it. Because we don't understand how our parliamentary system works, we don't understand how legislation works, we don't understand how lobbying works. And these are very important factors. And I don't really want to reduce participation in the democratic system to voting, because voting is just one aspect, which you're going to do on Thursday. But there's a lot of work to do for 4 years, 5 years after that.
So, I mean, as for the functions of the mayor's office, you said he has or she has a say in the economy in London, it has a say in policing, it has a say in housing and so forth.
Yeah.
I've seen people make the argument that their hands are tied because of the system. They can't really make any significant changes, any significant...
So this, sorry, Sheikh, just quickly. Yeah, because
You-
I'm going to forget my point. I'm sorry, Sheikh.
It's all right.
It's just very quickly, because, this is the same argument used for many things. But if I just go back to the Police and Crime Commissioner, okay, now when this role came, this is a person, this is one man who actually oversees the budget of a constabulary, yeah? So let's take West Midlands Police Force. Okay, there's one man at the moment, it could be a woman, who's in charge of that police force. He or she oversees their budget. He or she actually appoints the chief constable in their area. He or she actually writes a crime plan which prioritizes which crimes to tackle, which crimes to give priority to. Now, if that's not a powerful person, who is a powerful person? Okay, the Home Office, the Home Secretary does not have that much power over the police as this one individual does. Now, this is the power already invested in the Mayor of London. Okay, because of the Metropolitan Police, which is the biggest police force in the country and perhaps the world, okay? Now, after that, he or she has all of the other powers. So people say, the system, no, there's a system, there's a process of getting things done, okay? So if you look at let's look at the first mayor of London, who was Ken Livingstone. What did he introduce to London that we're actually reaping the benefits of? Cycling, yeah? This free cycling, he introduced. Yeah. And now if you look at in terms of greener, healthier kind of way of life, we have cycle lines in London. Now, when that mayor initiated that process, idea, he had to go through a process, and that's the system. So I think people conflate, that your hands are tied and you have to go through a process and they won't let you do it. It's a bit conspiratorial in my mind. I think people just don't understand how it works, the process.
Yeah,
sorry, Sheikh.
This is what I wanted to say. You mentioned the point that the mayoral position, is the second most powerful position after the prime minister. Is there any kind of facts to substantiate that? Because he doesn't have a legislative power. He doesn't have. I'm just playing the roles of devil's advocate. Yeah.
But actually, I mean, there are several indications as to why that might, and I agree with Azad in that particular statement. First of all, he has a budget, and virtually no other policy-making position has the size of the budget that the mayor of London commands. The other thing is that the mayor actually employs tens of thousands of people. I mean, if you're looking at across the transport system, transport network in London, the policing network, the staff within City Hall itself, it's a huge operation, and therefore tens of thousands of people will be under the command and under the employment of this particular mayor. So on an executive level, it is absolutely true. Yeah. But I'd like to once again touch on what Azad said, and I think this is absolutely important. We unfortunately come, and I totally congratulate Sabeel and 21c for holding this particular webinar. But it's very, very important that we push and we press the point that if we are to become truly citizens of the country, whereby we demand our full rights, whereby we can with full confidence fight the scourge that is racism, discrimination, Islamophobia, and all the discriminatory disease of this society has. It's a must that our engagement with politics is a daily issue.
Yes.
On a daily basis.
Yeah.
With that, when we come to the time of voting, it'll be a natural process.
Exactly.
And it'll be much, much easier for those who example, I'm pretty sure, are now tweeting and messaging saying, well, who should we vote for? It will be much, much easier for people then to decipher what the criteria is to, to selecting who to vote for.
That's a really important point, because this is, over the past few weeks of campaigning, this is what has been, noticeably ignored in terms of the actual function of the mayor's office. Instead, what we've been seeing is just a battle of personalities between the two leading candidates.
Unfortunately,
and Sadiq Khan, which, although it's important if the person is a leadership figure in that sense, I've found personally not anyone perhaps talking about the differences between the two in terms of the actual policy.
Now, I want to say that, well, see, we should not blame people as we should blame ourselves or the leaders. And to be honest with you, Azad and Mend and maybe Cordoba, MAP, those, even MCB. Yes, they cannot maybe promote one particular party or one particular individual, but they should have run campaigns to encourage people to vote and to explain to them, because there are many people who are not interested. To be honest with you, I recently came to know that, well, when the ballots came and I started to read, and my children started to ask me, yes, because I know about the General Assembly and the mayoral, but the police and the others, I didn't know much about them. So I started to read, So if there are no campaigns to inform our community, still they will come at the last minute whom we should vote for. Maybe now, alhamdulillah, the Muslim community, we should not be very negative. They are much concerned mainly about the mayoral election. But the other two...
I think, Sheikh, what happened with the mayoral election is it became Islamophobic, if I'm honest.
Exactly. It became...
And the campaign itself turned into something about Muslims, who's an extremist, who's this, all of that kind of stuff. And that's why it's in the minds of most Muslims. And that's the honest truth. But I think you're right, we have not done enough. I mean, we don't just do our work during the election time. We've already this year held over 30 courses across the country. And we are, more and more people are learning. But it takes time, but more importantly, it takes a collective effort. That's why I agree with Brother Anas that what we're doing here today, this is very new, and I'd like to see people like Al Maghrib, Al Kawthar, all of these other institutions who teach religion as well to add this element. And just a couple of things.
In fact, the imams should have.
And this is we've actually given a lot of masajid and khutbah the actual khutbah itself on participation, on why, Islamically researched. But, the problem that we're facing the most is a lot of us want a shortcut to everything, okay? And there'll be a lot of Muslims who'll just say, just tell me who to vote for. This is short-termism is problematic in my view, because we got to understand the process. We got to, I would say, as a community, the Muslim community is politically not mature. Our politics are not mature politics yet, and but that doesn't give me doesn't make me sad or anything. It gives me hope. We're a very young community, only around 80 years in this country. Okay, other communities have been here for hundreds of years. Now, what we're trying to do here as men is move the discussion away from personalities, away from what the media would like to dictate to us, to actually matters that, for us to take on board. So you've got the local council elections. As a local resident, if I realize the discussion is that one party, if they get into power, they're going to collect the bin once every 2 weeks. And if the other party comes into power, they'll collect it once every week. That's something that actually is going to bother me. Because I know what's going to happen as the consequence if they don't collect the bins every week. So you got to kind of break the kind of politics down. And the second thing we're challenging, and this is really important for everyone to understand, is unfortunately we're living in a time now where the tail wags the dog. What do I mean by that? Politicians and media set the agenda for what we as citizens want. Okay? It is the other way around. We as citizens empower and and kind of enable our representatives to do the job for us on what we think is important, not what they think is important. And this is a cycle we have to break out of. And that's why short-termism isn't going to be the answer. And we have to play the long-term game on this.
If I may, okay. Yeah, maybe another point, see, on top of what Azad mentioned, is that, and maybe that brings us to the heart of the discussion or the debate about how to vote for the coming election, rather than to make the discussion so huge, which is many Muslims are not convinced that they can make a difference. Yeah? See, this is a problem whether, after the ousting of Morsi in Egypt, or even on a local level. Many Muslims becoming more distant from political participation because they see that, show me a model where it is working. And here, for example, in England, in our country, or even in other European countries, they haven't seen a model where the Muslim vote does make a difference.
What difference in what, Sheikh? What do they say? Exactly. Difference in what sense?
So that is what needs to be addressed in order to be, because see, for many Muslims, you said what is it? Short-termism. Short-termism, yeah. There is also short-sightism. Well, they think that, in order to make a change, just your vote, you will see things changing on immediately. Exactly. And it doesn't work like this. It changed, subhanAllah. In life, it doesn't work like this. So they have also to understand this, that it is a long-term process.
Can I just also say, I mean, the question that Azad tried to ask you whilst you were making the comment, I think is quite important. And that is, what kind of change are we looking for? And that is quite important.
Yeah.
Because when you speak to different people, a lot of what we speak about are dreams and aspirations.
Yes.
And by the way, it's very interesting because we conducted several surveys in the past few years amongst Muslim communities, students, for instance, and professionals and housekeepers and the such. And we found that invariably, whilst there might be one or two things that pertain specifically to the Muslim community, generally speaking, the aspirations of Muslims are quite similar to the aspirations of anyone, of citizens.
Course, yeah.
Because essentially what they want is a better life.
Yeah.
They want to be safe, they want to be secure, they want their streets to be clean, they want their schools to be good.
Housing is a big issue for all Muslims.
Exactly.
And non-Muslims, as you said.
So in a sense, the change that we want to create isn't exclusive to me or to my family or to my community, to my mosque.
Yeah.
It's something which pertains to the entire society, and I need to play my role in pushing for that to come, but I need to be part of the discussion, and this is the importance, and that's why what Shaykh Haitham just said, I think is very important regarding mosques getting involved in voter registration. I mean, one of the suggestions that I presented to a couple of mosques a number of years ago, and one or two of them adopted this, and that is that how after every Jum'ah, there's a bucket that goes around, well, several buckets that go around, and then there's the deaths, for instance, who passed away, who was ill and needs dua, and all this. Why don't you add a line saying, and by the way, those who haven't voted to register, there's a leaflet outside that's being and regardless of whether there's an election around the corner or not. It's just something that we need to happen. It needs to become part of our culture.
I think that's the key point. It needs to become part of our culture.